Merry Christmas, everybody. It's time of joy for the human race, or should that be the master race? Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time I'm reviewing the very last 10th Doctor story. It is The End of Time. So here we are, the very last episode of the 10th Doctor's run. 2 episodes actually of the 10th Doctor's run, and the last festive special of the 2000s. 2009's The End of Time, starring David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, Bernard Cribbins as Wilfred Mott, and guest starring John Simm as the Master, as well as other characters which I'll go through as we continue with this. As you know, I don't have a proper full plot line like I do on the classic series reviews, so this is just my ramblings a little bit about the plot and how it all went. So basically the Doctor turns up on Earth after finding out the Master has been resurrected after dying, with a little help of DNA from a kiss from Lucy Saxon. It goes wrong, the resurrection though, and the Master becomes a more powerful being which can shoot beams of lasers out from his hands and is continuously ravenous and wants to eat everything in sight, including humans. And his body is destroying itself effectively. But it doesn't stop his manic to keep going. The drumming in his head is still there, and the Doctor tries to help him throughout it. The Doctor has his prophecy of he will not 4 times. He assumes it's the Master. He assumes that the Master will be his downfall, of his death. And in the times of him travelling about trying to find the Master, he bumps into Wilfred Mott, who has been looking out for the Doctor, keeping vigil over Donna and making sure that she doesn't remember, so she doesn't become the Dr. Donna and kill herself. And then when the Master finds out that there's been a project to heal and resurrect people with a medicine device created by and funded by Joshua Naismith and helped by a couple of alien Vinvoci in disguise, the Master uses his DNA to turn every human on Earth into him. Apart from Wilf, who is being protected in one of the control cells, which helps the monitoring of the radioactivity from the machine. The Doctor, of course, because he's not human, and Donna, who has the elements of the Dr. Donna in there. The whole events nearly trigger Donna's death, but there's a failsafe the Doctor brings in to stop that from happening. The Master soon realises that the drumming is real and realises it's code. He uses all his masters across the world to figure out that the drumming is actually a code and a message from Gallifrey at the very end of the Time War. Lord Rassilon is ruling and ruining the last day of the Time War. The first mention of the moment of the Doctor having that ready to destroy everything, Rassilon decides to put the drumming noise retroactively into the Master to allow him to be used as a code to bring them through. A diamond called a White Point Star is sent to Earth, and the Master manages to bring the Time Lords through. In the meantime, the Doctor has escaped on the Vinvoci ship with Wilf and the 2 Vinvoci, and ends up flying back down to the country house of Naismith, where the project has been held, and flies through the glass ceiling and stops the Time Lords from coming back through by shooting down the connection. The Master then helps keep the Doctor safe by blasting the Time Lords back in to the time lock of the Time War at the end of the story. The Doctor still survives, he's still alive, but Wilf has been caged up in that radiation monitoring station all this time, all through it, and he chaps 4 times on the glass. The Doctor realises that is his end. The radiation device has 2 doors. One person has been at any one time, but there's been an overload happen through all the situation with the Time Lords coming back, and the radiation is about to destroy everything. So the Doctor takes Wilf's place, soaks up the radiation, and starts his regeneration cycle. The Doctor's reward is to go and visit all his previous companions and say hello one last time with this face before he goes, ending with meeting Rose on New Year's Day 2005. Although she doesn't recognise him, of course, she just thinks he's a drunk in the end of the street. However, he regenerates with a big ball of flame in the TARDIS, destroying it, and as the TARDIS has started coming away from Earth, it starts falling back towards Earth, and the regeneration completes with fingers and I'm a girl and Geronimo of Matt Smith. Okay, that's my rambling plotline of the story. Let's go into some of the elements and the characters of the story in a bit more detail and just have a discussion with them. We'll start, of course, with the main lead, with, of course, David Tennant playing the 10th Doctor. This is an amalgamation of the more solitary and sad sides of the 10th Doctor. There's not much comedy in this one for the 10th Doctor. The kind of zany side is gone. There's a lot of melancholy here because the Doctor's still reeling from the Waters of Mars episode previously, and when he thought he was Time Lord victorious and it all went wrong for him. So he's regretting his actions there, which is really quite sad. Wilf is there to comfort him, and he kind of thinks that Wilf has something to do with this, because Wilf keeps coming into a situation at the moment, and he's not sure what it is. Although he does take Wilf along for the ride when he's trying to find the Master and trying to find the signal for the transmission and everything else, and Wilf gets hung up in there. But Tennant doesn't put a foot wrong. Everything he's given, he plays with the emotional gravitas you need for it. It really does work, and it shows the best of the 10th Doctor. I think maybe the rant at the end, his frustration, the fact it's so unfair and he could be so much more, is a little bit OTT, but Tennant plays it brilliantly. There's no issue with that. But maybe the scripting's a little bit off. But overall, I do enjoy the way the 10th Doctor is played here, and I think it's a very, very strong role from David Tennant. We then have John Simm playing the Master. Basically, the Master has gone absolutely crazy. It's a precursor to the very mad Sacha Dhawan Master we see in the 13th Doctor's era. There is elements of it. This one, he's mad because he's been driven mad by the drumming and the whole master plan, and that from turning everybody to the master race is undone by the Time Lords. But John Simm, again, brilliant pairing. The rapport between him and the 10th Doctor throughout this is absolutely stunning. It really does make a brilliant set piece. It's maybe a bit dark for a Christmas and New Year story, but it's certainly worth it for that, because it makes a difference, and it does tie up a lot of loose ends from the Russell T Davies era, which ends in this story. The first Russell T Davies era, which ends in this story, and it's interesting how it's all been put together. And John Simm really does not put a foot wrong here. I think it's one of the better versions of the Master when they are so unhinged and so crazy. But this one's so unhinged because of the drumming being so loud and driving them to madness. It's really interesting how that's psyched itself out in that respect. I think the standout performance, though, is Bernard Cribbins playing Wilfred Mott. He goes through the gamut of emotions. You've got the comedy elements there of this happy-go-lucky old man with his group, his grey group that he has, that comes along with Minnie the Minx, played by June Whitfield, deliciously. But I think he's the human element. He's the one that shows the great love and respect, and he doesn't like the idea the Doctor's about to die and kill himself, and he really does respect and love the Doctor for who he is. And I think it's a really great performance from Bernard Cribbins to show the whole gamut of emotions of somebody with a companion. It's nice to have somebody like that there, who has his own downside. The Doctor greatly respects him, and I think Bernard Cribbins is a great choice to be the pseudo companion for this story as Wilf. We have a background on Wilf. We know all about Wilf from previous stories and previous things. He first appeared in Voyage of the Damned 2 years previously, as the newspaper seller, and then he was developed into Series 4 as part of the bigger story for Dr. Donna. It really is a great overall arc that we have here that's completed here with Wilf, and it's a really lovely role. I think Bernard Cribbins hits it perfectly. I think he does it better than the others, if I'm perfectly honest, and I think it's really, 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 really well done. I think it's a great little turn from Bernard Cribbins, and it's worth watching the story just for the way he puts himself across. He really gets into it. He nails every line and scene he gets. He gives all that emotion and gravitas, and really he's the thing that elevates it to a higher level of this story overall. Is his acting helps raise the bar for John Simm and David Tennant overall, and it's really nice to see. We've got some honourable mentions here of some other characters in here. I'm going to mention Catherine Tate very quickly. Very small roles, Donna Noble. She's basically hitting beats. She's not really doing much here in regards to the character. It's more a repetition of the old Donna in this one. It's still fun, but it's not. It's quite staid. It's deliberately a cameo in that respect. Same with Jacqueline King as Sylvia Noble. Obviously, Sylvia has more of respect for the Doctor now, but it's still the case of that worry that Donna will be killed, and she's worried for her daughter, which is understandable. So we have Larry Lewin and Sinead Keenan, who play Rossiter and Adams, the two Vinvoci. Nice little semi-comedy roles, and I like the way they're included in the scenes where the Doctor's escaping from the Master on their ship. And I do like the variants of it. Nice little comedy-ish roles. I think it's quite good, and it works well for me. We do have a cameo appearance at the beginning from Alexandra Moen, playing Lucy Saxon. I think it's interesting that they play on the fact with Lucy's character that she wasn't the brightest, but she does have bright family, and it's her potion that kind of destroys the resurrection effect and makes the Master more of a big ball of energy that is eating himself to death effectively, or consuming his energy to death effectively, which is an interesting setup. We then have, I'm going to make one more noted appearance here. We have Timothy Dalton playing Rassilon. Rassilon, of course, is the fabled original First Lord President. He's obviously been resurrected for the Time War, and he's done as a dictator. He's done as a narrator in the first episode, which works well for that. And then he comes into this raving lunatic in the second one. Dalton has a gravitas to play the role really well, and I think it really does work. And I think he has one up on Donald Sumpter when Donald Sumpter does it in Hellbent. A few years later, I think Timothy Dalton has a better gravitas to be Rassilon rather than what Donald Sumpter does a few years later. Ultimately, though, it's a nice little cameo, full of bile and spit and everything else, and he's not the only character that spits on screen in this one. Matt Smith does it because he gets a bit dusted himself when he's doing this regeneration scene at the end. Very nice, very cool. I do like the whole way it's set up with the Time Lords coming back, and it kind of gives an arc about the Time Lords and explains why the Time Lords are so disdained by the Doctor now, why he's so fearful of them, because they got so corrupt in the end. And I like that way of using Timothy Dalton as the element to bring that into line. I do think that it's probably the best of the guest parts that we have here, even though he's got probably the least lines of the major guest characters. But it's really nice to see, and I do like the way Timothy Dalton plays Rassilon in this story. Some of the good bits. So Lucy was the reason, as I mentioned, for the Master to burn up his life force so quickly, because the resurrection kind of failed off the back of something that she did. The whole idea of resurrecting the Master using his ring and the DNA from the kiss is an interesting way of doing things, although that's a slightly convoluted way of doing it, because yes, there might be DNA on the lipstick, but if she's been in prison for months, surely that would wear away a bit. I don't know. It doesn't quite come to muster for that bit. That bit's a little bit interesting. The Rassilon voiceover, it does give that convey of a story, like a tale being told, and I think it works very well. The woman Claire Bloom, who keeps coming up and speaking to Wilf throughout the story, as don't speak to the Doctor, don't let the Doctor know what's happening, be careful, arm yourself, all this sort of thing. It's played with a kind of mysterious thing. We still don't know who she is. We don't know whether she's the Doctor's mother, Romana, Susan. She could be a relative of the Doctor. The Doctor obviously recognises her when he sees her at the end, when she comes through the barrier with the rest of them. But it's an interesting way of working, I think. It's okay. It's a strange one though, with the character, but it gives a nice point for Wilf to have a bit of doubt. The Vinvoci, another variation of the Voci species that we saw of Baffa Catalata from Voyage of the Damned to episode 2 Christmas specials before. I like the way the Cactus people are using a kind of shimmer, a kind of disguise them as human. I think that's a nice little touch, and I think it's the only bit of really good humour you get in there from the 10th Doctor. The moment, as I say, is first mentioned, and is revealed properly what it is in the Day of the Doctor. We have the Doctor saying he's 906 at this point, which is intriguing. And then we have the long goodbye, which is obviously the Doctor visiting all his companions. We're talking about all the companions in the new series here, so he goes and visits Sarah Jane. He saves Luke from being knocked down. He goes visit Martha and Mickey, who are now married, when they're trying to be ambushed by a Sontaran. He goes and speaks to Jack and meets Jack in a bar, and Jack meets up with Alonso, midshipman and Frame from 2 stories before, in Voyage of the Damned, and they hook up thanks to the Doctor. And then of course we've got the scene which I think's the one that works the best, is Billy Piper and Camille Kaduri coming back as Rose and Jackie, and the whole thing of Rose celebrating 2005 New Year's, and the Doctor seeing her before she disappears into the parallel universe and meets the Doctor later that year. I think that's a really nice little touch, and I think it works quite well. Overall, I think it's well directed by Eroslin, and I'm not the greatest fan of Erosling's work, but there's a lot of set pieces in here. You've got the battles in the dark between the Doctor and the Master when in the wasteland. You've got the scenes near the end where the Doctor flies from the split ship, it crashes through the glass dome into the main laboratory. The idea of the master race and the way that everybody's converted over is done quite well. I think the direction's quite solid for what you need for this, and it's actually not a bad little direction from Eroslin. My copybook with him has blurred slightly because sometimes he makes directional choices that don't make sense. This one I think he's okay. Tooth and Claw is an example where he does the monks and they do that kind of slow kung fu thing, which I think completely is out of sync from everything else in the story. And it's just like a little glamour shot. He doesn't have any glamour shots in this one, and it actually works better for that. So I'm glad that hasn't been taken into account here. It really does make a difference for me. Writing by Russell T Davies is top notch. It's Russell T Davies tying up a lot of loose ends, leaving a couple open, but tying up a lot of loose ends about the whole run of the 10th Doctor, and leaving enough closure to allow Stephen Moffat to carry on with his era with Matt Smith and beyond. So it's interesting the way it's been written here. I think it works quite well. And Murray Gold, it's highlights of his episodes, but Valley Dacum at the end, of course, is the ultimate, and it's probably one of his best pieces he does in the whole of the series, and I think it really works for that. And it's great overall. It's well put together, it's enjoyable. It's maybe a bit dark for Christmas Day and New Year's Eve, and the New Year's Eve episode's a lot darker than the Christmas Day episode, but I think it's one of these ones where you do have to watch it just to understand it, and it's a very emotional goodbye. And I actually do think it's a very good story, and I am going to give it, for the first time in over 80 reviews, 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. That was a surprise to me as well, but I just think about it and I'm going, no, it should be 4.5 TARDIS out of 5. It deserves to be 4.5 TARDIS out of 5. It's a great send-off for the Russell T Davies' the first era and the 10th Doctor, and I think it deserves its place up there as one of the best Doctor Who stories I've reviewed so far. Let's see how that sits in with the rest of the Doctor Who reviews for the 10th Doctor, and also how it sits in with the rest of the reviews for the TV series overall as well. I've now done 10 stories for the 10th Doctor. End of Time, of course, is the highest rated of the 10th Doctor stories we've reviewed so far. The Turn Left and Voyage of the Damned are 4 TARDIS out of 5. Then 3.5 TARDIS out of 5 are The Christmas Invasion, The Runaway Bride, Tooth and Claw, The Next Doctor, and Gridlock. And with 3 TARDIS out of 5 are The Idiot's Lantern and 42. Overall, it's the first time since 2019 that a TV story has received 4.5 TARDIS out of 5. There are 6 other stories that have that accolade. They are The Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Caves of Androzani, The Tomb of the Cybermen, and Dalek. And at the bottom are still 2 stories, with Time Lash and Sleep No More on 2.5 TARDISes out of 5. That's it for this Doctor Who review. It's amazing, 4.5 TARDIS out of 5. First time in a long time that I've actually done a 4.5 TARDIS for the TV stories. There is a few more out there, and a couple of 5s as well, but stay tuned for them, they'll come soon. The Doctor Who reviews return in March 2024 with Loop Skaroo, the Big Finish monthly adventure. Hopefully you can join me for that. But in the meantime, what did you think of The End of Time? Leave a comment down below. Did you like it? Leave a comment down below. Did you not like it? Leave a comment down below. And if you like this video as a whole, please like it, share it with the hashtag teamstructor. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. Help us out with that by hitting that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. General, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT. I am back with the Kidstructor on Sunday at 4 PM GMT, and then we end the year with 6 Facts with John F. Kennedy on Hogmanay, the 31st of December at 4 PM GMT. Until then, GMT rather. Until then, guys, thank you very much for watching, and you know what? Merry Christmas, and I'll see you later.